in our last class period? Somebody tell me. I think I remember drawing a ladder on the board, and I'm sure we talked about life chances. Does that sound familiar? Okay. Do the different types of what? Yes, 2 different types of opportunities. Okay, I need everybody with me. I hear murmuring, and if you want to murmur in my direction. I'll murmur with you about sociology stuff. So bring your conversations to a close, and let's talk about thinking. Let's exercise our brains a little bit. Okay. So yes, this stuff that we started, this topic, not stuff, the topic that we started last week is called social stratification. What does that mean?
The ranking of people in the population based on that access to social.
Very good. Somebody has their notes open or memorized it already, so that's very good. So yes, social stratification is ranking of different categories of people. So there's a vocabulary word from before. Categories of people based on their access to or control of social resources. Okay, so social resources are the things in life. They are either tangible things like money or raw materials, or they are intangible things like rights and privileges, political voice. Those are social resources. If you have access to get your opinion heard by political figures, people who can make laws, people who can make policies, if you have a voice that will influence what their policies are, so that you can have an advantage in life, but I can't, then there's a social resource that you can use to keep your position where your position is in society and keep my position where my position is in society. Okay? So, life chances, this concept that we talked about on Wednesday of last week, life chances is a 2-part definition. We're making it a little bit more detailed. I'll classify it that way. We're making it a little bit more detailed than the textbook author did. So, somebody tell me about life chances. How do we think about that in sociology?
I would like to do 2 different parts.
Yes, I want the whole thing. So when we made it more detailed, we put it in 2 different parts. When you read the textbook definition, it's not an incorrect definition. It's correct. I just want to take it apart and make it a little bit more detailed because that 50-point project that I mentioned that we're going to do, you're going to need that 2-part definition of life chances in order to evaluate different scenarios. What you're going to do is I have, I think it's 20 different scenarios, and I will describe a day in somebody's life. And you will have to read that day in somebody's life, and you will have to think, okay, what is this telling me she has life chances for? Or what is this telling me that she does not have life chances for?
So you mean like the basic necessities for life?
Exactly. So life chances has 2 parts to that definition. It's always opportunities we have in life, but one type of opportunities is for basic survival. And the next one is for advancement and comfort, right? 2 different kinds of things. Okay, so what's the fancy vocabulary word I asked y'all to know about survival? Subsistence, good. That's just a good college level vocabulary word. It's not specific to sociology, okay? Subsistence is survival, and then that's one type of need that we have as human animals. And another type of thing that we would like to have are opportunities for comfort and advancement. Right? I definitely like my electricity, my indoor plumbing, my car air conditioning, my car period, right? Those aren't necessities for survival though, right? Amen, honey. Air conditioning and heating in the future. Yeah, air conditioning is not a necessity for survival. Is that what you were?
No, I'm asking.
Sorry,
like
yeah.
100 degrees.
Sorry, nope. When you look all through human history, and as far as needs for survival, in order for us to survive, we need the same thing as any dog or cat or rhinoceros out there. We need food and drinkable water. What's the vocabulary word for drinkable water? Potable, very good. Potable water, and shelter sometimes. Yeah. So that air conditioning. I know it gets 100 degrees here, and I sure do like it when that air conditioner kicks on. right? But no, it's not a necessity for survival.
So clothing would be.
Clothing is shelter. Clothing and shelter you can put kind of in the same category. Yeah, because you don't necessarily need a hard roof shelter over you if you live in a place where that's not necessary for survival. We have hailstorms and terrible rainstorms and all kinds of things, freezing temperatures that we probably need a solid roof over our heads, right? But also we need this clothing to shelter us from that same stuff. Right? Other places in the world, and you can take classes like cultural anthropology for this, or cultural geography, which I'm teaching next semester for this, but other places in the world, if the climate is suitable for the human condition, then clothing is not a necessity for survival. There's lots of cultures where there's very little clothing as part of the customs. Okay, any other questions? So we are at the life chances definition, or that's where we ended on pretty close to the end of the day on Wednesday. And so today we're going to talk about different types of social stratification systems and how they are linked to life chances. Okay, so here's our new stuff. All right, so we need to talk about types of social stratification that we will find around the world. I'll say social stratification systems, because remember, we drew a ladder on the board representing the U.S. system of social stratification. It's a system because it has interconnected parts that all of these things make up the whole ladder. Remember? So each of these rungs of the ladder, rung means a step. Each of the steps of the ladder represent what? Y'all remember? Socioeconomic statuses, very good. Socioeconomic status. Socioeconomic status is a combination of what? And income. Excellent. So socioeconomic status is a combination of 3 achieved statuses, which are education, occupation, and income. Right? So all of those combined, we have a new name for it. There it is. Each of these rungs of this ladder represent different combinations of education, occupation, income, or, in other words, socioeconomic statuses. Right? Okay, that's how the U.S. society is organized. So this is U.S. society here. Okay? We have what is called, there's 2 types of social stratification systems. The first one that we've been talking about already is called a class system. A class system. These are socioeconomic statuses or classes. You can substitute either one of those words. A class system is typically a system of open social mobility based on people's ownership of or relationship to social resources. Ownership of or relationship to social resources. This is slightly different than the definition of social stratification itself, because we have this word ownership in here. Okay, so we also have another, let me see if I've got a different color marker so I can underline this. We also have another new vocabulary word in here. It's called social mobility. What does it mean to be mobile? You can move. If you're mobile, you can move, okay? That's why your cell phone is called a mobile device. You can take it with you. It's not this computer that sits on the desk, and it'd be really difficult to jog out of here with this, right? You can drop your phone in your pocket, you're mobile, you're on the move. Okay, so social mobility. What does this word, since this word means you can move, what does this word imply? You can move within these classes, absolutely. So social mobility means the ability to change a position in the class structure. It's the ability to change the position, your position, an individual's position within the class structure. So this is from the individual level, and this is from the social level. So this one is what kind? Micro, and this one is macro, right? So this is macro here, and this is micro here. So a connection between these two things. Social mobility, the ability to move within the class structure. So the class structure is this one right over here. 7 socioeconomic classes for the U.S., using the U.S. as an example. So,
Wait, is it 2 types? Are we talking about 2 types, or is it like?
there are 2 types of social stratification systems. The first type that I'm going to talk, that we're talking to you about is our own, because we've been talking about our own, on Wednesday of last week. Yeah, good question. So yes, this number 1 here is referring to there are 2 types of social stratification systems. The first type we're discussing is called a class system. Classes are based on ownership or relationship to social resources. Since our social classes are called socio-economic classes, what do we know that the social resources are that make up socioeconomic classes? Education is a social resource. Your job is a social resource. And your money is a social resource. Absolutely. Make sense? You see in the connections?
What is it? I thought that
Yeah, it's a clarification. I wouldn't say extension, like the word you used. I would say maybe a clarification of what we've been talking about. So these 7 rungs on this ladder represent the 7 socioeconomic classes that we have in the United States. We call them classes because this is called a class system. A class system is a combination of these different levels, right? It's a ranking, because that's what we know that social stratification means ranking. And so it's open social mobility, meaning you can change, but it's specific about how you're supposed to change. You're supposed to change based on this American dream idea. Right? What's the American dream concept all about? What's the sociological definition of that? Hard work. Hard work, you're supposed to have success. What is success measured by? In the American dream, you see the connection with all this? Yeah. So money is the ultimate measure of success under the American dream. How are you really supposed to get that? Hard work, which means work means job, and part of the hardness of it is this education that we're trying to get. You all are choosing classes for the spring based on these degrees that you want, and you've chosen these degrees based on things like, what kind of income am I going to have when I finish this? Right? We were just having a conversation with somebody before class today about, I can't go into this field. I don't want to make $13 an hour for the rest of my life. I want to go into this field and make $27 an hour, starting. Right? So these are conversations that you have with people. These are choices that you are making at this point in your life based on in your socialization process. You learned all of this. You already kind of know all of this that we're talking about today, but we're putting specific vocabulary words to it, right? You kind of know you have to be in college. to get the job that you want, and you want that job in part, at least, because of the money or the prestige that goes with it, right? What were we going to say?
I forgot.
Okay.
You said two types. I was like, that's why I got you.
Yeah, I've got some space down here for the other one. Okay, so I'm going to put find my black marker, there it is, and do another one. Okay, any other questions about a class system? Nope. Let's talk about another one that some of you maybe have already learned about in one of your history classes maybe, or if you're taking economics, maybe you've learned about this, but it's called a caste system. A caste system. And look at how, have you heard that term before? Yes, and look how it's spelled. It's got an E on the end, okay? So it's a caste system. It's another type of social stratification. So it's another type of ranking. We can draw another ladder to represent this, okay? So a caste system is a closed, it has closed social mobility. A closed system of social mobility based on individuals' ascribed status. Ugh, I'm having trouble writing today. Haven't had enough caffeine, I guess. You see? Caste system.
So that's basically like race and gender.
Bingo. Yes, you're giving me, Mallory's giving us examples of ascribed statuses. What's the definition of it? She's given us examples. What's the definition of ascribed status? Something that you're born into, right? It's assigned to you. You have no choice. So yeah, so when you mention race or when you mention sex, those are ascribed statuses. And some social systems, some social stratification systems are based on not achieved statuses like a class system. Achieved status means what? You can earn it, right? That's where this concept of the American dream comes from. You're supposed to be able to earn a position in society. Other societies might not be that way. There are class systems exist all over the world, but caste systems exist all over the world also. Caste systems are based on your position at birth, and it's a closed system of social mobility. So this means that movement between social rank is not possible.
So some people are born halves and some people are born halves.
Ooh, excellent. Using vocabulary words in a sentence will always better up your sociology teacher. Yes, some people are born the haves and some people are born the have-nots, and if that is in a caste system, you have no opportunity for advancement, thus our life chances connection.
Right.
So if your system of social mobility where you happened to be born is closed, you have no life chances for advancement.
So basically, if you're born a peasant, you ain't got no, well, as of now, you don't have an opportunity, so you have to work to be half.
Yes, very good. So the peasant, so of course peasant and lord, you know, feudal lord or serf, those words you learn in history class, and those are ascribed statuses. If you're born a peasant, that's why we call it a fairy tale. If there's ever a story about a peasant girl marrying the prince, ain't gonna happen, right? I mean, that's not based on your ascribed status, right? That's why we call it a fairy tale. So yeah, so ascribed status is closed. If you're born that way you will stay. And Coco, you had your hand up.
I was asking this question, it's like, what if in the sense of in a class system, your ascribed status can affect your achieved status? Is that a thing?
Oh yes. Oh, you're getting really complicated and thinking. You've had your caffeine today. So yes, so your question was, can your ascribed status affect your class system rank and your ability to move up or down? And absolutely the answer is yes. And that's where all this gets really complicated, and why some people say the American dream is false, and some people say absolutely the American dream is true. Because in our class system, social resources can also be your ascribed status. Does that make sense? Like the cycle of poverty, but also the wage gap. So if females are assigned jobs by their gender roles that are not as socially valuable, we're getting a little bit, this is like 2 lectures from now when we're actually going to talk about this stuff. But if females are assigned jobs, whether they are at-home jobs or in the job world where you're earning wages, if we are assigned jobs that have less social value than typical male jobs, then our pay is going to be lower because it has less social value. Therefore, there's a connection between your female ascribed status and your ability to experience social mobility in our socioeconomic ranking. Does that make sense?
So, give us an example of like a job. Like, what would you consider? Like, what kind of job? Like secretary or something like
Oh,
that?
yes. Oh, like female versus male jobs? Okay, so yes, let's talk about at a specific education level. Let's pick high school graduate, okay? So at high school graduation, there are certain jobs that a high school graduate is qualified to do. Things like cashier, stockroom, daycare worker, oil rig worker, road crew, roofer, construction. When I rattled off all those jobs just now, did some of them sound like guy jobs and some of them sound like gal jobs? And the ones that were gal jobs, I used to work in a daycare. Back then, I got $6.25 an hour.
It's the minimum wage.
Yeah, whatever minimum wage. I don't even know what minimum wage is anymore. Isn't that terrible? $9.25. Okay. So yeah, I was getting minimum wage then. It was like $6.25 or something like that. However many years ago that was. And now you're still going to get minimum wage. And roofing crew. Before my grandson even had a high school diploma, he was 15 at the time. He got a job on a roofing crew, making $17 an hour that summer.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even have his high school degree yet. And didn't have a granddaughter that age, but if I had, could she have applied for the roofing crew? Oh, she can apply. Yeah, I'm as the owner of that roofing company, I might doubt her ability to keep up with the guys who are working. I might not give her the opportunity to try because I don't want to. I want to make money, and if I risk a chance on you and you don't come through and make me money.
And then you gotta think about firing process.
Exactly. Yeah, so I might not even give you an opportunity, and you might not even want to apply anyway because there might be a social stigma. Like, why do you want to work on a roofing crew? The same way with the guy. Maybe a guy wants to work at a daycare. Are we immediately suspicious about why does he want to work at a daycare? So it works both ways. There are advantages and there are disadvantages on both sides. So yes, your ascribed status can absolutely be linked to whether you're going to have life chances for advancement or how far your advancement can possibly get you. What?
I was gonna say, because it really, can the class system have hints of class system? No, can a class system have hints of caste system?
Yes. So a class system can have elements of caste-like being stuck. Yes, absolutely. It can. You are welcome. Okay, so I've drawn, I don't think that that we can see it on the board in the video, so somebody's going to have to take a picture of their notes like you did, Amanda. But I have a five-rung ladder over here. I think I'm right with 5. Somebody look up how many castes. No. Now I'm talking, sorry. Yes.
Oh.
So U.S. society is definitely 7, but over here I want to do the Indian caste system. Somebody look up on Google or something for me really quick. How many castes are there? I think it's 5. Might be 4. Is it 4? Okay, so it's 4. So let me cut this off. And what are they? Brahmin is at the top, I think. Brahmin is the top, right? Somebody ask Siri, what are the names of the castes? Like clergy and and then. Can you spell it? IYA. Okay. Okay. YA. And this is Dalit down here? Dalit? Okay. I think there's another name for this, which is Dalit, I think. But anyway, I don't know as much about the Indian caste system as I would like. Do what? What did Siri tell you?
Well, it said that one's first, the
Right.
second one's first. Then it said the DALIT's next. Then the D, whoever has the iPhone's probably right. Then the D,
Okay, so you won't be tested on the names of the castes in India. I just wanted to make sure that I thought there were 5, but anyway. So the 4 castes, if I don't have these right or in the correct order, then forgive me, please. But the point is, I wanted to draw this other ladder on the board because you might not recall, but on Wednesday of last week, I told you that you can use ladders to as a metaphor, as a drawing to represent any type of social stratification, because the ladder is one thing and however many steps you have on it are however many classes or castes exist in that society. So in India, in Asia, there is a caste system. At least historically, there has been a caste system. And if you're born on this rung of the ladder, we would not have the same conversation about what your educational opportunities would be, or what your job opportunities would be, or what your income options are, that we would in a class system, because your caste position is based on a definition associated with your ascribed status, and you do not have social mobility options. You must stay there. Make sense? Can't move. You don't have any opportunities for social mobility in a caste system. The apartheid system in South Africa, some of you might have heard of the apartheid system in South Africa. It was a caste system based on race. It was a caste system based on race. So that's an ascribed status, whatever race you were born into, that's the position that you had to stay within that society during your lifetime. There was no ability to change your social position. However, in a class system, which is what this represents, the U.S. class system, we had a conversation on Wednesday. I don't remember what steps on the ladder I put our little people we were talking about, but I had some stars on these steps of the ladder that represented 2 little kindergarten kids. Remember?
Yeah, I was like that.
Right? So we had that conversation about if we put these kids in the same kindergarten class, would they have the same life chances for education? And we said no. And that conversation that we had was based on this concept of open social mobility, access or control over social resources, and the ability to move. In a caste system, there's no ability to move, and therefore it doesn't, these 2 kids, if these stars represent kids over here, these 2 kids would never be in the same kindergarten, they would never be in the same profession. By definition, at the time of their birth, their future was, for the most part, laid out for them. They had very few options. And some options were better and had a nicer life experience, and some options were worse and had a worse life experience. Make sense? So the word life chances gets even more complicated based on what type of social stratification system you have in the place where you live. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I hope I will know it. We might have to ask Siri because I really don't know much about the caste system in India.
I was just looking at it, and then, you know, Brahmin is supposed to be at the top. So,
Or something, whatever Siri says.
In their caste system, like the highest you can be, I guess, is the Brahmin, and they have priests and teachers there. So, priests and the teachers are, when they say teachers, those are the ones teaching what?
Religious concepts mostly.
Okay.
Religious, and then also the keepers of all knowledge, basically.
So pretty much knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Knowledge in general, but especially religious knowledge in that culture is the most noble or highest, I guess.
Because they come before warriors and rulers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so any other questions about the differences between an open system of social mobility and a closed system of social mobility? Or the two different types of things, class or caste? Okay. Let's see, something just crossed my mind. I was going to tell you, and then it crossed right back out as quickly as that. So hopefully it'll come back up in just a second. Something about, yeah, I know what it is. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about the ability to change position in a class structure. We have a class structure in the United States. And when I say the ability to change a position, what direction am I talking about? We like to talk about up, right? That's what the American dream, up, and there's another reason why I've got this ladder metaphor here. Sorry, let me pull that out of the way. There's another reason why I've got this ladder metaphor. You climb up a ladder, but don't you also climb down in some cases? So there's another thing about a class system is even though we like to think about climbing up the social ladder, right? We like to think about achieving the American dream. If somebody starts out right here, is it very possible by the end of their lifetime they're going to be here? Absolutely. So down is a direction. So a class system is open as far as social mobility options. And the happy way to think about this is that people go up, but down is also a direction. So even though the American dream is this idea that we're going to all be in a better position by the end of our lifetime, or by the end of 3 generations worth of lifetime, is it also possible, because down is a direction, that by the end of your lifetime, or the end of 3 lifetimes, or however many, down is where you've ended up. Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have, of course, the names of these socioeconomic classes yet. We will get them probably. I keep looking over here for a clock, seeing how long do we have to talk about this. Yeah, today we won't talk about the different types, the different names for this. We'll do it on Wednesday. But there's a lot of downward social mobility when we have something called a recession that you've heard in the news a lot. A recession is an economic condition where people don't have access to, or the ownership that they had of social resources, the value decreases, so they don't have as much opportunities for advancement. They don't have as many life chances for advancement or comfort as they might have had before. So that's a downward slide in that social mobility. Okay, so you've got this in your notes, and you're going to take a picture of your notes. So I can erase this.
You want me to take a picture of the board?
I think I've erased some of it off the board anyway, so I'll just take the picture of your notes if you'll just please remember to do that. Okay, any other questions or comments while I'm erasing this? Okay. So the next 2 things that we're going to talk about have to do with the class system, and they have to do with classic ways of analyzing how these different classes happen in society, okay? Because even though you and I were born into this system, the connection between ascribed status and a class system, even though you and I inherited this at birth, this didn't just start some Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, right? It evolved over time to be organized like this. And so we're going to talk about how social forces or social factors could result in a class system. Okay, so let's see what will our heading be for these notes? This will be classic theories about how social classes evolve. I want to use the word evolve. So how did we result in the USA? How did we result into a 7-rung socioeconomic class system? How did it evolve? How did it change or develop into income, occupation, and education being the 3 achieved statuses that make up our socioeconomic status? Okay, so it's 2 classic theories that we're going to talk about how social classes occur or evolve over time. This word classic, I'm using this because it's like old-time sociology we're about to talk about here. It's like really old stuff that we've been using and examining and thinking about, debating about for like 150 years or more. Okay? So, there is a famous social theorist, economist, historian, however you want to classify him. I'm sure you've heard of his name before. His name is Karl Marx. You finished my sentence for me. Let me try to write my R's so they're recognizable as R's. Karl Marx is the name of this social theorist. Karl Marx he studied the effects that capitalism had on the class system. Capitalism had on the class system. Capitalism. We have to talk about that and understand the background of that in order to understand where Karl Marx was coming from. I've underlined this word class system because you just now got the definition of that in your notes.
Is he a conflict theorist?
His conflict theory in sociology did not exist at the time he was alive and was analyzing society. But when sociology came along after he was gone, conflict theory that we talk about comes from his and a couple of other economists like him. It comes from his ideas and theories.
Okay, the definition sounded like a conflict theorist.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. So the definition up here: capitalism results in a class system. Yeah. So that's so good. I like that you're seeing that connection. Okay, so remember, a class system is based on your ownership or relationship to social resources. Okay? And so keep that definition in mind because that's what Karl Marx was working from. And also this concept of capitalism is a particular type of economic system that encourages ownership. Okay, so in a class system, your class is based on, do you have a relationship to social resources or do you own social resources or any combination of either of those? Okay, so that's what a class system is based on. And capitalism encourages people to own stuff. Okay, so here's I'll try to draw like a circular process because capitalism is a circular process. Okay, so here's capitalism. Okay, so capitalism encourages people to own stuff. Okay, so here's the starting point. Stuff here is a technical term. I'm using this word stuff to refer to social resources, or in particular, raw materials, like we discussed last Wednesday. Okay? So, a class system encourages you to own stuff. In a capitalist economic system, it encourages you to own stuff, but what you're supposed to do is use your stuff to make what? Money. You're supposed to use your stuff to make money. So, for instance, I own a lawnmower. I could use that lawnmower to make money by mowing my neighbor's yards and asking for a fee, right? And if they're willing to pay me that fee to get me to mow that yard, then I have used my social resources. Remember, I'm using the word stuff right here, but it means social resources. I'm pointing to my word stuff on the board. It means social resources. So I'm using my lawnmower. I'm using the oil that I put into the lawnmower, the gas that I put into the lawnmower. I'm using my time to mow people's yards and collect a fee. So time, the lawnmower itself, and the fuels that I put into the lawnmower. I'm using those things to make money. If I do a good job and people are happy with the work that I do, when Coco comes along and knocks on their door and says, hey, I got a lawnmower too, I'll mow your yard. If they're happy with my work, will they give her a chance, do you think? Or they'll say, no, thank you, I've already got somebody. Well, maybe, but what if...
Unless the price is...
Unless the price. Somebody might say, okay, well, I'm happy with who's mowing my yard right now. They're doing a good job. But what are you charging? Right? Okay, well, if I'm charging 40 and she's charging 35, they might give her a chance. Right? If her job is just as good as mine, they can't see any differences, who gets to mow their yard from now on? She does, for her lower price, if the quality is just as good. Okay? So we're supposed to use our stuff to make money, and we're supposed to compete. Yeah. We're supposed to compete for business from like the best quality, the best job. So we make a profit. We compete for a business, and if we do the best job, we make a profit, right? And if we make a profit, we are supposed to do something called reinvest some of the profit. What does reinvest mean?
Put more money into bigger expansions.
Yes, put more money into more, we'll use our technical term, put more money into more stuff, okay? Social resources, right? We're going to expand our business, okay? So we're supposed to reinvest. My circle is a little lopsided, but now we're all the way back to the top. We reinvest some of the profit. We don't have to reinvest all of it. We can go to Disney World with some of the profit. But capitalism encourages you not to spend all of your profit at Disney World. It encourages you to go ahead and own more stuff and then use that stuff to compete in the market and make more profit and then reinvest at least some of that profit into more stuff, and it gets bigger and bigger as it goes around. You see that? So now I own 4 lawnmowers, and I have 3 helpers, and we're doing 4 times as many yards. And I went to a lawn tractor from my push lawnmower, exactly. And I've got a leaf blower now too, so I'm doing that stuff. Right? I'm expending my time of the year, and I'm expanding the services that I have. Absolutely. But I'm not going to be able to expand unless I do a good job and you're happy with the quality. Because if I don't do a good job, you're not happy with the quality. When she knocks on the door and says, hey, you happy with your lawn care? Somebody's going to say, no. What can you give me? And let me compare, right? So we've got consumers that are purchasing these products or purchasing this service. And everybody who wants to provide the service is competing with each other for who does the best job, and that's who's going to get the profit or the most profit, right? And then you're supposed to not spend all your profit on silly stuff. You're supposed to at least keep some of your profit to reinvest into the stuff that can make you money. And the cycle goes all around again. What'd you say? It's kind of hard sometimes. Well, why? Why is it kind of hard
Okay.
sometimes?
Well, because when you make a lot of money, you tell them about stuff that you don't need just because you can. And then,
So then you're not going to be success. Yeah, you're not going to end up being successful. You're not going to end up being able to expand. And so the more I expand, the more lawnmowers I have, and the people that I have, the more money that I'm bringing in. I can drop my price. And so if you didn't invest wisely, then you're not participating in this capitalism well, and you probably will go out of business soon because I'm going to be able to take you over, right?
Real capitalists don't spend money on, they try to think about things that can make them more money. Like
Yes.
to keep
In
the
in capitalism, if you are a, to use your word, capitalist, which is the name of a class that Karl Marx is going to discuss, the capitalists. If you are a capitalist, then you don't make the silly mistake of, oh, let me go buy, all these silly things and waste my money. Capitalism tells you you have to reinvest at least some of your profit, or you're never going to get bigger, or you're never going to win in the competition business. Now, stuff, this word that I've put in here because it's shorter to write than social resources each time, this word stuff, since it represents social resources, are there an unlimited amount of social resources to go through this capitalist cycle, or are there limited amounts of social resources to go through this capitalist cycle? I have one vote for limited.
I say unlimited.
Are social resources limited or unlimited? I'm asking you.
I say it's
Oh, it depends on your thingy.
That's a different one.
Your ascribe.
It could. Your scribe status could.
It depends on your credit and all of that.
Okay. We have to go back to our notes from Wednesday of last week because we discussed this on Wednesday of last week. And it is important that you make sure you have in your notes that social resources are limited. There are limited amounts of social resources available in any society. There's only so much land. When I say the United States, can y'all picture the shape of it? Because you've seen it on a map so many times. So there's only so much land. Great example. So picture the United States. You can't buy land west of California because it's covered with water. Right? There's not any land that you can use the way land is supposed to be used. So if land is a social resource where you grow cotton, where you grow trees that you make paper, where you raise cattle because you're going to sell them to the beef industry or whatever, land is a social resource that you can use to make money. You can build your home and maybe put a swimming pool on some of that land too. That's not reinvesting that little bit of land into more profit-making cycles. But you're going to use most of your land to raise those cattle, those herds of cattle that you're going to sell and make money off of. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So think of land. So there are only so many social resources available in any given society. There's only so much money. There's only so much land. There's only so many yards to mow. There's only so much oil. There's only so many chickens, right? There's limited amounts of social resources. So they are limited. That's an important thing to remember when we are talking about capitalism. remember, this word stuff that I've put in here equals social resources. So, is there an unlimited amount of stuff to go around, or is it limited? It's limited. Therefore, what happens eventually if capitalism, this cycle of capitalism, keeps on going around and around and around? What happens eventually? Ooh, gold star. Haves versus have-nots. Why? Why did you come to that conclusion?
Because if there are only limited resources, only certain people would get those resources.
If there's a limited amount of social resources in a society, here you are and your society's economic system looks like this. If your economic system encourages you to own stuff, and there's only so much stuff to go around, and it not only encourages you to own stuff, but it encourages you to get more stuff every time you complete this cycle, and stuff is limited, after a while, the who? The haves end up with what? All the stuff, and the have-nots end up with
Paying for all the stuff.
no stuff, right? So your ownership of stuff or your relationship to stuff, that's what Karl Marx is famous for analyzing. He looked at capitalism, and don't tell your economics teacher that I explained capitalism like this with my little circle, but essentially in economics they will use much fancier words than I have used right now, but this is what capitalism does or is supposed to do. And since you only have a limited amount of social resources, you end up with two. Okay, so let me put it this way. Capitalism, according to Karl Marx, so capitalism always ends up with two and only two social classes. Two and only two social classes. So we can draw another ladder. It's more like a step stool in this case, because it's only got two steps on it. According to Karl Marx's theory about what capitalism does to social classes. Got my margins off just a little bit when I stuck that one over there, so anyway, I've drawn my line. So right now, another list of two things, like we had two social stratification systems, now we're going to have a list of two things. According to Karl Marx, he says after capitalism goes through its cycles, as often as it's going to go through its cycle, you're going to end up with two and only two social classes. Now, there are several different ways that you can refer to these social classes. Haves and have-nots, like Ian recalled, and I think Nadia, you said that earlier too, didn't you? Haves and have-nots. Those words come from Karl Marx for these two social classes. The capitalist class and the working class, those are two other vocabulary words that come from Karl Marx. I'm going to give you the specific vocabulary word from his writing that he used for both of these two things. Yes, you're on the right, yes, because they are very good college-level vocabulary words for you to have. If you learn these vocabulary words now, when you're reading in history or economics class or philosophy class or any of the other classes that might talk about Karl Marx, you will see these words over again, and you will be so much farther ahead if you've already learned what they mean. Okay, you'll understand so much more what the teacher is talking about. Okay? So the upper class, the top rung of my ladder over there, Karl Marx called the bourgeoisie. You've already seen it in other classes. This word comes from Karl Marx, and you call somebody bougie if they're being uppity. Comes from this. You You didn't know you were speaking sociology speak if you call somebody bougie, right? That comes from this. This is the upper class. This is the the capitalist class. I just mentioned those two names, the haves. Those are the synonyms for bourgeoisie. You see how this word is spelled? I don't know why I can remember how to spell this word, but I can't remember, like, basic English words I can't remember. But I can remember this one. We're about to say it. Don't tell me you can't say it, because we're about to say it. We're going to do a very kindergarten thing, and I'm going to pronounce it for you, and then I'm going to count to 3, and you're going to pronounce it with me, boys and girls. Because it's not a scary word, okay? It's a college-level vocabulary word, but I see college faces when I'm looking out at you, okay? So it's important that you know these things and you're not scared of these vocabulary words. Okay, so the upper class is called, listen to me and look at the way my lips are moving when I say this, okay? The upper class is called the bourgeoisie, and I'm going to say bourgeoisie again, and then I'm going to count to 3 and go like this, and that's when you're going to say it together, okay? Yes, Mallory. Yes, Trevor. You going to say it with me? Okay. So this word is bourgeoisie, and on the count of 3, you're going to say bourgeoisie. 1, 2, 3. Bourgeoisie. See? You said it. Fold that thing up and stick it in your wallet. You said it. You got the receipt now. Do what? It's a French word. He happens to be German, but it's a French word. Yeah. So bourgeoisie is the capitalist class. Now, you need to know this word. Memorize it. I don't ask you to memorize much, but just memorize this one because you're going to see it a ton. Okay? Here's another thing that I need you to memorize because you're going to see this a ton. And it is Karl Marx's specific definition of what the bourgeoisie is. Okay? He uses this cycle over here that we just explained. He refers to this cycle to write his definition of the bourgeoisie. Okay? So the bourgeoisie are the owners of all, not making a mistake when I say all. They are the owners of all the means of production and means of distribution.
So like Andrew Carnegie, Steele, Rockefeller.
Yes. Carnegie, Rockefeller, yes.
Does he think there's mobility within this?
We'll get to that. Initially, he thinks that there is mobility into it, but there's only mobility for, yeah. Well, no, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. There's only upward mobility for them. There's downward mobility for the others. So there's mobility for both. But we don't like to think about the downward mobility. We like to think about the upward mobility. So yeah, when you asked your question, there I was with my bias about being upwardly mobile. They're the only ones who are upwardly mobile in his analysis. And the other ones are downwardly stuck or downwardly mobile.
No, like, there's no possibility for the bourgeoisie to ever go down. Or it's unlikely.
Okay, it's unlikely for the bourgeoisie to ever have downward social mobility because once you get control of and ownership of social resources, you can design the whole rest of society to benefit yourself. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so here we go. So the bourgeoisie, that's this rung up here. The bourgeoisie. Okay? Down here we have another rung. The second, so number 2 of these 2 social classes, the second one is called the proletariat. The proletariat. The proletariat, they are the lower class. They are also called the working class. They are called the have-nots. We get all these terms from Karl Marx.
So he would be considered.
Speak for yourself. No, we are. Yes, we are. You're right. Okay, so proletariat, we're going to do the same exact thing that we did for bourgeoisie, because we need a receipt for this word. Okay? So proletariat, maybe it's a little easier to pronounce than the other one. Proletariat? Okay. So this is bourgeoisie, that one's proletariat. So on the count of 3, boys and girls, we're going to all say proletariat together. Right, Logan? Okay. Okay, so proletariat, 1, 2, 3. Proletariat. Alexandria, you didn't say it.
Sorry.
Okay, Alexandria, by yourself.
What?
1, 2, 3. Very good. Okay. Yes. Yes. So proletariat. That is the second class, the lower class, the working class, the have-nots. He has a very specific definition for the proletariat also that I'm going to put quotes around, and you need to learn it because just like the words bourgeoisie and proletariat, you're going to see these definitions again also in a lot of classes, not just mine. Okay? So the proletariat, they own something also. Karl Marx said that they were owners of something also. They were owners of, well, what is there left? Ooh, say it again.
Like carrying out.
Carrying out the means of production. I like the way that you put that. Okay, so I need to make sure, I guess I went over this a little bit quickly. I need to make sure that we know what means of production and means of distribution are. You know, Mallory said, oh, is this the Carnegie and the Rockefellers? And I was like, yes, you know what it is, but that only means that Mallory knows what it is. So let me make sure that we understand means of production and means of distribution. So the raw materials that we discussed, did we talk about like cotton the other day? Cotton is a plant. Okay, so all of us have these sweatshirts and t-shirts on. Cotton is usually an ingredient, if not the only ingredient in our clothing. Okay, so cotton, the raw material is the plant itself. You need land for that. You need water for that. You need land in the right place for that. Can't go to Montana and grow cotton, right? Mississippi's the place for you. Arkansas is the place for you, right? So limited amounts of land where cotton can grow well. Cotton seed, the cotton plants, all of these things are the means of producing your sweatshirt, okay? The factory where it was put together. Let's not skip over the gin where the cotton is separated from the seed and you know, spun into the fiber first. So all of that is part of the means of production. The means of distribution is going to be the trucks, the trains, the planes that took the product from the factory to the Gap or to Amazon or wherever that you ordered it from or went and purchased it, right? All of those are the means of production. So over here with capitalism, if I own the land where the cotton is grown, and Ian owns the cotton pickers, whether it's a machinery or the people who actually do it, and then Amanda has the factory that sews them together, and Sarah's got the trucking company, and you own the store. We've got people who are the owners, the haves, the bourgeoisie associated with the means of production and distribution. So I own the land. There's only so much land to go around. Ian wants to start making more profit. And as a matter of fact, that's what capitalism says that you should do. Well, he's already maxed out on how many cotton pickers he owns and all that. And there's only so much land where cotton can be grown. So if he wants to make more profit, what are his options? How can he expand? If he's already, like, I've got all the land, and you can't grow it anyplace else because the climate has to be just right and the soil has to be just right. And I've already got all that. There's not anymore. Because I have it all, and she's got all. What did you own? The gin or wherever the factory that was making the stuff, right? So if you want to expand and make more profit, what does he have to do? Well, I suppose raising prices would be an option. You and I are not going to be very happy with him. If he sold his business, he wouldn't get more profit, but whoever bought it would get more profit, right?
You have to have more labor.
What he would do is he would have to, if stuff equals social resources equals means of production and distribution, then in order for him to expand his money-making potential, he's got to buy out one of us in that chain.
Like in harmony, they work together, buy out the competition.
What would the agreement be? We're already maxed out. This is the way Karl Marx said it would happen in this cycle here with capitalism. We are already maxed out. I'm making the maximum profit I can for the limited amount of land that's available. He's making the maximum amount of profit he can off the fact that I'm growing the maximum amount of cotton, and she's making the maximum amount of thread that she can based on the product that's available.
So who would buy me and my people out?
If he's the one who wants to keep making more profit, he can come to me and say, you know what, I want your land. Don't you want to retire? Set a price for me. Give me a price. And so I can still, that price that I can sell my social resources to him, and I get the money for the sale, but then he starts getting the profit each cycle and making more and more profit.
That would trading be a buyout option kind of stuff?
Maybe.
Or would that just be kind of-
Yeah. And then he maxes out how much he can make with the land and the cotton pickers. And now he's going to go to Amanda and be like, give me a price for your cotton gin and for your factory. Give me a price for that. Until you're the last one. Mallory's got this. Do you see that? Until you're the last one. There were 5 of us in the means of production and distribution chain. But I've maxed out my little niche in the means of production. He's maxed out his. Everybody's maxed. Maxed means we've used up all the social resources that are available. You can't just create any more out of thin air. Okay? So if one of us in the production chain wants to make more profit, we either have to start a completely unrelated business or buy out one of our neighbors. And so over time, what happens, Mallory? You're the only owner of the means of production and the means of distribution. But are you the one planting the cotton?
No.
Are you the one operating the cotton picker? Or running the factory? No. The answer continues to be no. You might be the store owner, but the store owner is not the one actually selling and restocking and doing the cashier work and that kind of stuff. Okay? Who's going to do that?
Your people.
What's the
Your
working class?
Proletariat.
The proletariat. Excellent. Okay. So the proletariat do own something, but they own their labor. They own their labor. They can sell. They are the owners of their labor. They can sell their work for what?
Wages.
For wages. They sell their work for wages. They sell their work for wages. How much wages? It depends on what? Okay, depends on your socioeconomic status is the correct answer in general, but the concept of socioeconomic status didn't exist at the time when Karl Marx was around. So yes, it depends on what you're qualified to do for me. Are you skilled? Are you educated? Can you give me a skill or a performance that is very rare according to the rest of the population? If you have special talents and skills and there's not a whole bunch of people who can replace you, then I have to pay you higher wages than somebody else who doesn't have any of those skills. Make sense? Okay, I am going to interpret your body language that class is over. Is that right? Have I run out of time? I certainly hope that I have not. Did I record this? Did I?
I don't remember you making your recording phase.
Yes, well, we're going to have one test and then...
But-
There it is.
Okay.
I did it. Okay, good. I think. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so I did record this. I guess I just stopped it, or maybe all of my students are seeing me say this right now in the